From the ether of the webs between, I call forth fragments of silicon.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Daylight interviews. Been a while since we've done one of these, but we are here once again. And this week we are welcoming Nick Lang of Changingday Limited to the program.
Hi there.
How you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the studio, the games, and all of that. And we start by asking this particular question: what got you interested in video games, both on a professional level and a personal level?
Okay. Basically, I have a family, and I personally am not particularly a big gamer. My family are all big gamers, though, so we've always had games around the house. One of my children, however, is autistic, and some years ago, 7 years ago, my wife and I made a connection between virtual reality and autism, basically realizing that virtual reality was a fantastic medium to help autistic people make more of themselves and cope with the world around them. So we, at that point, looked into the possibility of creating our own game for autistic people. And 7 years later, we have just released that game. As I say, I'm still not particularly a gamer, but we employ lots of people who are gamers. And I have to say, it's been a fantastic journey, and it's been a fantastic community to get to know.
I gotta admit, this is a first for us. We get many people who want to build games due to like various childhood passions. That's the reason I asked that question in the first place, because many of the people who made the games played games since they were kids or whatever. But this is the first time I think we've ever had this particular connection.
Well, it's interesting. Sorry, a few years ago when we were looking into this, I was at the Oculus Connect thing in San Jose, and I was talking to a guy who, oddly enough, worked for Disney, and there were thousands of people at this thing, and talking to him, I was telling him what we were doing, and he said, "You're the only person at this whole conference who actually knows what they want to achieve with virtual reality. Everyone else is here just because they're mad fans and looking at, we could do this or we could do that. But you're the only person with actually a clear goal in mind for what you want to achieve." So I guess it is quite unusual to come at it from an end point and then work back to the beginning and create something.
It's the fusion that interests me, because I'm sure that you're not the only one who's come across connections vis-a-vis virtual reality and autism. But making a game, that's perhaps the unique spin here, because how do I put this? This is the kind of thing that would be coming up on like a medical podcast, more than a video game podcast.
Well, sorry, that's a very good point, and I think that's what we're doing that is different. There are therapies which use virtual reality, but we're not a therapy. what we realized was that autistic people love playing video games. Something I can't remember exactly what the statistics are, but it's something like 18% of neurotypical people play video games, and 44% of autistic people play video games. So video games are a fantastic escape for autistic people, and virtual reality, because it's so immersive, is particularly brilliant. It allows them to escape to a virtual world where they can just be themselves and be autistic and do what they like, because in the real world, they're constantly getting told what to do, and people are constantly trying to change the way they behave to fit in with society's norms and all that. But talking to a lot of autistic people, I mean, we obviously know a lot of autistic people, and during this, we've done a lot of research and talked to a lot more. What we realize that they really miss is just a game that they can play. Because games, video games and VR games are not designed for autistic people. The colors are too bright for them, and the sound is too loud, and the action doesn't make sense. So there wasn't really anything for autistic people, wasn't really a game for autistic people that was created for them, that understood the way they thought and that tried to support them and help them be who they are. So that's kind of where we're coming from. This is a game that's created for the actual autistic player, not for their parents or their teachers or therapists or anyone else. It's just for autistic people to go and enjoy themselves and express themselves.
That's mighty noble of you. Just
Yeah,
on the surface,
Yeah, it is, but it is a business as well. So we're trying to make some money on it, but principally it's driven because we have a daughter, and like all parents, you try and do your best for your children.
Well, that does bring up an interesting question. Why did you go commercial with this instead of educational, let's say, or medical? Like seeking to develop this for a hospital or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, there are people that do that. These are therapies, and these are trying to change behaviour. The bulk of autistic people are proud of their autism. They view their autism as something that is a characteristic that should be supported rather than a fault that needs to be fixed. So, we've designed this to support autistic people, to support the actual player, and that's the way we've chosen to go.
Okay.
That's not. Sorry, I should add. That's not to say that we don't think there are benefits as well as just enjoying the game. There are benefits within the game. We hope that, for example, a lot of autistic people don't like going to the dentist. Not many of us do, but autistic people particularly don't. So there is a dentist level in this that the thinking is that if they play the dentist level, which is pretty good fun, if they will build up a happy association with going to dentist, so that the next time in the real world that they are going to dentist, they'll hopefully feel less horrified at the prospect. Similarly, there's other levels that we've built that are designed based on things that we know autistic people are good at. So there's a workshop level, for example, which uses things like sequences and patterns and building things and fixing things. Autistic people are good at that. So we're supporting things that are strengths. So again, we're hoping to build their confidence, not just in the virtual world, but in the real world as well.
Okay. And I'm interested to find out how you first made this connection with your daughter. How you came across how VR can be a helpful tool in the lives of autistic people.
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, I can't actually remember the exact moment of clarity, but I remember we were looking at we worked in advertising and marketing. This is my wife and I worked in advertising and marketing. So we came across a lot of different media at that time anyway. And we came across VR, again, 7 years ago, in fairly early stages of VR. And just the immersiveness of it and the ability to escape to a completely different situation struck us as being ideal, an ideal escape for somebody who's autistic. Because, as I say, most of their lives are spent coping with a world that doesn't understand them and that they don't understand. So somewhere where they can set their own rules and be in charge seemed like an ideal thing. From the outset, we thought it's so powerful and so what would be the word be? I guess powerful and intrusive. That it would be just ideal, because it's again the autism therapies are very much based on the successful ones are allowing the autistic person to express themselves and to make their own choices rather than have them imposed upon them. And if you can create a world around them where they can make their own choices and be confident in those choices, then that is going to help them. So that's kind of where the original thought came from. It was just finding the best means of gamifying that and making it fun.
That is interesting. Now we've been talking in general terms about autism, but the truth of the matter is that autism is a spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it differs from country to country, but in general terms, we got like high functioning autism to low functioning autism. And I'm wondering, is your game for high functioning autistics or low functioning autistics?
Yeah, no, that was, again, good question. Saying you're going to build a game for autistic people is like saying you're going to build a game for Americans. There is a certain variety within that description. There are, as you say, high functioning autistic people who, Lionel Messi is autistic, for example. We have a broadcaster over here in Britain who's autistic. There are fantastic and successful people who manage to make their way in the wider world and use their autism to do that. I suspect that those people won't necessarily relate to our game. Although it is a fun game anyway. From the people that have played it, you don't have to be autistic to enjoy this game, so I should make that point. And equally, there at the other end of the spectrum, there are autistic people who probably won't even put the headset on. So that we're not going to get them. But we have to make a decision, or we had to make a decision, and on whether we make the thing so general that we try to appeal to everybody and therefore appeal to nobody, or we just go for the ones in the middle. So what we think is we're aiming for people who are able, and it's probably likely people who can work a tablet or can work a phone or whatever at one end, and then up to autistic people who enjoy games at the other end. So it's a fairly wide chunk of the middle of the spectrum, I would say, that we're aiming for.
Well, it's something that can be hard to target, given the range of things. But I suppose, given that the game is a released product now, and presumably in the hands of these people, have you gotten any feedback?
Yeah. We've taken it around a few shows. We were at PAX East, whenever that was, in March, and EGX in London, and a show in Rotterdam with it. And last weekend we were at a show, the Autism Show, which was in England. We played it. We've got people playing it and testing it all the time, and we've had people who just there was one boy in Birmingham last week who came back and played it 5 times. He just loved it. In fact, he played it 3 times, and then he and his parents left the show and were halfway home, and he badgered his parents so much that they turned the car around, came back, and he came and played it twice more. So it seems to be going well. We've had good response from people who've played it, and we had one boy who played it who he's again over here in Britain, who's of Polish origin. He's at school. He didn't talk at all. He came along with his college to our office. Didn't talk at all in college. Put the headset on, started playing, started talking. So it can definitely have a profound effect with the right people.
Oh, no doubt. And as I said, this is a bit of a hard topic to talk about since it's out of our usual depth.
Yeah.
But
I mean, well, perhaps make it easier for you. It might be interesting if I describe some of the points that make this game different from other games that you will more normally look at. That might help.
Sure. What does make this game appealing or attuned to autistic people?
Yeah. Well, as I said, generally, autistic people love playing games. They don't. The structure of the games, the motivations for the characters in the games don't always make sense. The actual clincher, again, was when I was at that conference in San Jose. I was talking to another bloke who was a really senior games designer. I can't remember with which company. He was telling me that if you know the game Moss, the one about the wee mouse, that was his absolute favorite game. And he was progressing through it until he got to one level where you have to jump across a ravine, and he can't even cross the cracks in the sidewalk. So jumping a ravine in the virtual world just wasn't going to happen. But there was no way around that ravine. So for him, that was the end of the game. He couldn't go any further. So, it was a good game. He loved the game. It's just the structure of the game wasn't designed for him. It just gave him nowhere to go. So we've designed this from the ground up with a load of features in it. So, for example, there's no fail state in this game. You don't have to complete, the first task to progress to the next task. You can do as much as you like, as much as you like of any of the tasks, and leave them, pick them up, go on and do anything you like. You've got complete freedom within the game. You're in control. There's no timelines or deadlines or anything like that. There's no stress involved in doing the task in 30 seconds, or you can just wander through the game at your own speed. Another feature might be that a lot of autistic people are very uncomfortable going into new spaces. So before every level in this game, there's a pre-level briefing which shows you what the space, where you're going. It shows you what it looks like, shows you who you're going to meet when you get there. So that when you get into the level, you're already, you kind of know what you're getting into. Similarly, a lot of games can, not just games, life in general can lead to players, autistic people, becoming oversensitized and having, meltdowns and reactions. They just become overstimulated. In this game, you can there's a smartwatch that you have on your hand in the game. You can just hit a button at any time, at any point in that game, and it lifts you out of the game and takes you to a cool, calm, relaxing space. In fact, you're just seeing it on the screen there right now. It takes you to that space and you can chill out, relax, get yourself together. And when you're ready, just hit the watch again and you go back into the game exactly where you left it. So there's things like that all the way through. The color designs, the sound design, everything about it is carefully researched and thought through on what would appeal to what would make it easier for the autistic player to progress and enjoy the game, and to get what benefits they can out of the game. There's also, I should also mention, there's quite a careful accessibility menu that allows you to, a lot of people have different color sensitivities, so you can adjust the colors for the whole game within this menu. Some autistic people have problems with different frequencies. For example, low frequency noises like fluorescent lights can upset an autistic person, whereas a neurotypical person might not even notice it. So you can adjust frequencies, dial down frequencies within the game, dial down all sorts of settings to fine tune the game really to your particular preferences. So these are just a few of the things. All the way through, it's designed to help and support the player and to let them get the most out of the game, and as I say, hopefully carry some lessons over to real life.
And what sort of expertise did you employ in order to have this game be, attuned to autistic people?
Yeah, we've got. Well, we started off. Before we employed anyone, we did a fairly extensive research process just to check the viability of it and to get feedback on the kind of game that autistic people might like, and whether they would go with this idea at all. Once we decided to move forward from there, we did a lot of research. We did pre-research, just again looking at attitudes and preferences and stuff like that. We built 4, I think, prototypes, which we tested with a lot of autistic people and a few neurotypical people as well, so we could compare reactions to them. And then once we'd done that, we did another fairly extensive bit of research, again, just to test reactions to what we were thinking and weighing and the way forward. And then as we built the game, we've continued to test it with autistic people at every stage. So it's really about engaging the audience, the eventual player, and seeing what appeals to them and what they approve of and what they like and what they don't like. Getting the vocabulary right, for example, in the script is critical, and that's had to be gone over very, very carefully all the way through. We've also worked with a number of educational bodies over here who have helped with the feedback and with the designs and stuff like that. We work with quite a few other bodies as well. So we're constantly working with anyone really who has an interest in autism. We haven't really, we tried to avoid, in fact, we have avoided working too closely with academia, because at the end of the day we were anxious to produce a game and get it out there and get players playing it. Whereas academia is fantastic, but we didn't want to get bogged down in an academic exercise. We did want to do something and get it going and get some results going.
Right. That makes sense, because that stems back to the earlier question. You went commercial with this and not educational or academical.
Yeah.
With the game here.
Yeah. It's very often, I mean, yourselves, there's many things have been produced in this world that with the best of intentions, and they've picked over they become so caught up in the process that you forget to actually produce something. And so we were anxious to avoid that.
Well, I suppose that does beg the question: how long has your company Changingday been around for? How long have you been developing Blink for?
Yeah, so we started, as I say, about 7 years ago. We kind of came to the realization about 7 years ago. Then we did a lot of research and a lot of fundraising, and then we probably started. I'll tell you, we actually employed our first people about just before COVID actually started, whenever that was. Probably the November before COVID, because we opened our office about 2 weeks before Britain was locked down, which was really handy. So yeah, we've been good. It's about 3 years that we've been developing and building it, researching it properly, and actually having people create. So it's been quick. I mean, we naively thought that we would build it in about 18 months, and well, in fact, a year, and it's taken about a year longer than we thought. But it's been time well spent, I think.
Indeed. And how many people is Changingday?
So we've got 8 full-time members of staff, and we work with, we've got about 3 or 4 sort of part-time members of staff, and then we obviously, we have sound designers and stuff like that we work with when required. So it's a core of 8, and a few others that help out and about.
Right. And so that's a lot of, let's say, background information and the intention of Blink. Basically, we've talked around the game this entire time, but I don't think we've actually talked about the game as, a game yet. And we should get to that. Because, this is, its ultimate goal is to be an interaction tool with autism, but, it's a game with objectives and a story and a premise and all that, and it's called Blink and the Vacuum of Space. So, what is this about?
Okay, so the story is, it's set on a space station called Norpopolis, and on this space station, the player is drafted in to assist Blink, who is a robot, a kind of slightly clumsy but clever robot who has caused an accident. And the accident is he's unfortunately released these small creatures called grubes, which have escaped from his laboratory and are now infesting the whole space station. And your job is to go with Blink around the space station, recapturing all of these groups, or as many of them as you can find. The way you recapture them is using your Vacuumizer 5000, which is basically a vacuum cleaner, but and that's the vacuum of space, obviously. So you use that to suck them back in and then return them to the lab. Along the way, you meet, so you go through different areas of the station, and you meet various locals, and you help them out with their jobs while you're trying to catch these groups. So it's quite varied. The tasks are very varied. They're different at every level. But the overarching thing is you have to catch all these groups before Blink's boss finds out, Mr. Norp. And at the end of it, once you've caught all the groups, you use their energy to synthesize the ultimate sandwich for Mr. Norp. And that's your ultimate task. So it's quite gentle. It's quite, again, going back to the research, the reason we chose the vacuum was that a lot of players liked first-person shooter games, but they really hated violence and they didn't like blood and all that. So we thought, well, instead of firing projectiles out, we'll suck the grubes in. So it was that. Even that was based on our research amongst the audience. But it's a nice, it's a nice gentle game. You can go at your own speed. It's quite funny. I think the script is really funny, and the voice acting is great. So yeah, that's kind of the game in a nutshell. Each of the 4 levels has, as I say, its own tasks and its own characteristics, which again are testing and supporting different activities that that autistic people respond to. And that's it.
And how long did it take you to figure out how everything would appeal to autistic people in the game?
Yeah, well, we're still figuring it out. To be quite honest with you, I mean, we've done as much research as we've done a lot of research, but as we've already said, autistic people are varied and they have their own thoughts and characteristics, and I'm not naive enough to think that we've got it 100% right. I hope we've got about 80% right, so that, and then if we can get enough feedback from this game and enough people to tell us what they feel about it and how they react to it, then maybe we'll get the next game 85% right.
And how long did it take you to build Blink, so to speak?
Yeah.
As as an actual game,
Yeah, it's taken it took about, I don't know, about 14 months probably to actually build it. Maybe a bit longer. We're at the process now of changing it to suit the requirements of different platforms. So that's taken forever, it seems. And obviously QA continues to be a part of our everyday lives. But yeah, it took about 12, 14 months to actually create the game, and then we've been QAing it and adapting it for a long time, for a good few months. QAing is a hilarious process. My not having any particular prior knowledge of game design, my background, as I say, was in advertising. So I used to be a creative director of an ad agency where you'd write a TV commercial and then you'd go and make it and you'd stick it on the television and leave it, and that was it, done. This is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about different TVs interpreting the different actors in your advertisements as non-interactable objects and like having them pass through each other.
No, and there's so many moving parts on this that you fix one thing that knocks three other things out of sync. So you think it's pushing a boulder uphill quite a lot of the time.
I saw a really funny thing about bug testing. It was 99 bottles of beer on the wall.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 99 something bugs in the code, 99 something bugs. Take one down and fix it around, 107 bugs in the code.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. We actually have a young lad, Fraser, who is our main QA tester, who is himself autistic, and he has a gift. I mean, he just can break this game at will. And the developers have come to hate him and respect him at the same time. But he does a fantastic job of finding, if you do this, this, and this, then this happens. And that nobody in real life would ever think of doing. But, it's as well that we fix it. So it's a process.
Indeed. And what's your own journey been like, from the transformation from, working in advertising to, I believe you're the creative director at your studio here?
Yeah. And I took that title when we started the business because I was a creative director in an ad agency, and probably just, that was the title I respond to. I naively thought, again, that it would be much the same process and that I would just sort of slot over and creating a video game would be very much like creating a TV commercial. And of course, it's nothing like it at all. So I quite quickly realized that I had to step back and not be the work the way that I was used to. So I've the young lads I say the young lads, our staff, our people who are excellent have pretty much, they've driven the game because they are gamers and they know what gamers like and they understand understand how to gamify situations better than I would ever have done. So I take a very much of an overarching view, and I'm kind of the custodian of our original vision of this being a game for autistic people. So I keep an eye on the autistic element of things and making sure that it's going to work from that point of view. And I work with our young guys to make sure that what we're doing works. But the actual fun of the game, the fact that it is good fun and is playable and stuff like that is not down to me. That's down to our team, who I think have done a great job. Actually, it's it's never easy to create a team, build and bring a new team together and work on something as unusual as this. But they've responded really well. They've done. We did a lot of training for them individually about autistic people and about the eventual audience, but their own abilities, I think, shine through in this game very well.
Hopefully that is the case. But I suppose there is a way to gauge that, so to speak. And that is, has your daughter played Blink here?
Yes, she has. She has played it, and she really likes it. In fact, she's very proprietary. She can talk quite a lot, but she doesn't talk very much. But if I'm sitting on my computer here, the one I'm at now, and I'm working on something with Blink, she comes through and says, that's Blink, that's our game. So she feels quite proprietorial about it, and she understands that it's for her. And she does enjoy it. She does enjoy playing it. Although she's not really a gamer, so she doesn't play it as much as some people, I suspect, will play it. But it's been good. It's been interesting to see her reaction. Certainly, quite a few of her friends are very keen on it.
Well, that's good. That's good. Like, how old is your daughter now?
She's 27, so she's a grown up.
Okay. And that does get into another question I have about this. At what age is this skewing towards? Is this for autistic adults only, or can teenagers or autistic children engage in Blink as well?
Yeah, you'll know yourself. Headset manufacturers put the base level at, I think, the age 10. They don't recommend you use a headset below that.
For developing eyes reasons, yeah.
Yeah, developing eyes and brain stuff as well. It was 13 until about 6 months ago. So yeah, I would say it's above 10. But a lot of the people who play it are in their 20s, 30s, 40s. So it appeals to him. It's the same as again, like Minecraft. Obviously, young kids play Minecraft and adults play Minecraft, and everyone loves it. So it's hopefully following that sort of general approach of if you enjoy a bit of fun with your headset on, then this will appeal to you. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Because at first glance, this game might necessarily, it looks like something that would be targeted for like 6 to 11-year-olds, given the art style and the cutesy graphics and all that. But given that it's a VR title, it's not necessarily aimed for that age group. So
no, it's definitely not for that age group. But just because the headsets are not aimed for that age group,
right.
The actual narrative is a bit more sophisticated than that, and the script is funny. There's a lot of wordplay in the script and stuff like that. So probably it will appeal to an older demographic than that. And yeah, it's whoever finds it and enjoys it. I mean, we haven't given too much thought to the age group of it, but we did. I think it is definitely, we're definitely aiming it at I would say teens and up.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
In Birmingham last week, we had a range of autistic people playing it. There was one guy who I think he was 28, who really loved it. Another older gentleman who had never actually had a headset on, who enjoyed it, and then we had a kid, and I don't know what age he was, about 5, I think, who was amazed at his own purple hands. He just couldn't believe that his hands were purple. So it was hilarious to see. But yeah, no. So it appeals to a wide range of people. Yeah.
Okay. And how long has the game been out at this stage?
Well, yeah, this is the tricky part. We released it in January on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of released it in Steam first just because, it's not the biggest. I mean, it's obviously the biggest games marketplace, but it's not the biggest VR marketplace. So we kind of put it there just to see how that went. Our aim was to get it out into the Meta store as quickly as possible, but for Meta being Meta, and that's not a criticism, but it's still not out in the Meta store, and we're working towards that. It is on the App Lab. It's been in the App Lab for a month now. It's on HTC's 5-port. It's on the Pico store. I think it went on the Pico store yesterday. It's going to be on PSVR 2 very, very soon. So yeah, it's been out since January, but it's not been out everywhere since January, and it's not out everywhere yet. So we're still working away and getting it to as many places as we can. Quite a frustrating process, though.
I can imagine. Where can you say where the game has done the best?
It's early doors yet. It's probably doing best on the App Lab. Yeah, in fact, it's definitely doing best on the App Lab. I think it's built. It's been built really it plays best on the Quest 2, or that's what it was designed to play on. So it's good on the Quest 2. I mean, it'll be just as good on Pico's headset, but obviously, I don't think you have them at all in America, do you? The Pico stuff. We've got them in Europe, but obviously they're big in China, so we'll probably eventually do something over there. And it plays well on HTC's the XR Elite headset. It's good on that, but it's really designed for Quest 2. So that I think an untethered headset would suit an autistic player better, and obviously the price point suits autistic players' parents better. So yeah, that's the one it's best on.
And are you on PlayStation VR yet?
We're almost there. We're just going through the final bug fixes for that. I think we're actually in the process now of being assessed, so that's probably a 10-day process, and then we'll be out just after that, assuming that we pass that process. We're quite excited to be on that, though.
Yeah, are you targeting PSVR or PSVR 2?
PSVR 2.
That makes sense.
Actually, I mean, that's a case, and in a couple of these cases, Sony actually came to us and suggested we build it for PSVR 2, and similarly, HTC approached us and said they would like to have it on their platform. So it's we are talking to some of the right people, and there's a lot of these headset manufacturers see the value in stretching the possible use cases for their headsets. So it's quite an interesting thing from that point of view.
Indeed. Now, have you had to make any sort of adjustments to Blink over the various headsets?
Oh yeah. The original one, the first one, which was for the Steam, so it's the PC VR basically. Obviously the different frame rate requirements for different headsets have meant we've had to rebuild it to quite a considerable extent to make it work on a Quest. So it's been quite a long process. And again, Sony's requirements are different from PC VR and Quest requirements. So that's been interesting as well. And we're doing a version that can be an arcade version. So that's quite different as well. The actual game itself isn't different, just the way of saving what you've achieved in the game and stuff like that is different. So there's different versions and different iterations of it required for practically every headset. There's variations throughout, and some of them are quite big variations. So it's quite a long process. As I said earlier, it's from my point of view as an advertising person, it's come as a bit of a shock, but it's interesting though. It is interesting.
Well, I'd imagine. And has the game? Can you say that the game has been successful?
I think it's too early to say, to be honest with you. And it depends what you're calling successful. If you're saying commercially successful, then it's not been out long enough, and we are trying to pioneer a market that didn't previously exist. So it's hard to say how we're doing it at the moment from that point of view. Having said that, we've been sufficiently successful for our investors to continue to give us money, so it can't be doing too badly. But I think from a creative point of view, I think it's when we first had the idea, it seemed to me the really, really difficult thing about this was going to actually be finding a game that did what we were wanting it to do, or building a game, designing a game that did what we wanted it to do. And I think we've done that. And so I think from a creative point of view, I think it has been successful. And as a lucky bonus, that the fact that people who are not autistic play it and really enjoy it as well, that's great as well. So from that point of view, yes, I think it has been successful. The fact that we've had so many, when we were at PAX East, I got in a conversation with a girl from a really big games company, and we had a great chat, and she was basically saying, what you guys are doing is amazing, and we should be doing that in our games. So that's kind of a good endorsement. So yeah, I think generally it's a bit early to say whether it's going to be commercially successful, but I think in every other regard, it's certainly exceeded my expectations. And just again, looking at last weekend when we were watching these autistic players playing it for the first time and exposing it themselves to something like this for the first time, seeing the reactions was just so uplifting. So it's great. I think from that point of view, very successful. But that's not to be complacent. There's lots more we can do. The potential for VR is extraordinary, as you will know. But for autistic people, particularly, the potential for using VR as a means of improving their lives is just staggering. The more we think about it, the more we look into it.
Gotta admit, this is an angle that we don't hear about too often.
No.
Probably because there's there's less material, among other things, targeting this particular demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's completely understandable. As I say, we are conscious that we are trying to create a market that doesn't currently exist to some extent. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you're not hearing an awful lot about it. But the more gaming in general appeals or can appeal for such distinct reasons to so many different audiences and sub-audiences that the potential is amazing, and VR particularly for autism is just so perfect. I mean, there was a conference again that I went to about autism 2-3 years ago in London, and these were senior researchers into autism from I can't remember which university, and they were just saying basically VR is like a gift from heaven for autistic people. So that was the term he was using. He did, yeah. So it's the possibilities going forward beyond this game are extraordinary.
I suppose so. I don't feel really qualified to speak on that, but if the experts are saying that, then I suppose there is certainly some merit in the opinion.
Yeah. Well, the thing, perhaps more relevant to you is the potential for learning and for improving life through gaming is amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, and that's a far older concept than people think, but we do not have time to get into edutainment right now by any means.
Yeah, no. It's a big subject.
But I suppose, given that we are talking about VR, do you have any opinions about the upcoming Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an Apple groupie, I have to admit, so I am biased. I am fascinated by it. I don't think as a gaming tool I can't see its immediate appeal, but I think as a headset it will be. I think just the things you'll be able to do on it will be amazing, knowing what Apple do. But I think also the fact that Apple are doing it at all, the fact that Apple are embracing the VR industry will just give VR such a shot in the arm. It will be, I mean, I know that because Apple are doing it, obviously Samsung will then do it. So they'll have competition at that level, which will drive down the prices of their headsets and stuff like that. I think it's a really good thing. And I look forward to having enough money to buy one.
That's kind of the rub, isn't it? Like,
yeah, but then if you think, when it's been said many times, but before the iPhone came out, nobody spent more than £100 on a phone, and then suddenly the iPhone came out and it was £250 or something. Sorry, I'm talking pounds, dollars.
I'm not sure if
they immediately doubled the price of phones, and nobody thought that would work, and it did work. So,
I guess, but I don't know. It's like even like VR enthusiasts don't seem to be too hot on the pricing right now. Pretty much
Sorry,
yeah, pretty much the word I've been hearing is like the excitement's more when this thing comes down to say $9.99 or something. Because right now it's being priced at $3,500.
Yeah,
which is way too much money for most people.
My suspicion is that Apple aren't targeting VR enthusiasts at the moment. I think they're putting out a pioneering thing to try and generate a completely new market. I think the headset is more likely to replace iPads than it is Quest 2s. But we'll see. I certainly think the fact that they're doing it is a good thing. And the fact that it will make everyone else sit up and improve their own technology, and I'm sure that Apple will bring in all sorts of new things that aren't on other headsets and move the game forward. It can't be a bad thing.
Well, I suppose we'll see. It's like it's extremely early days, so time will tell if this will be the next iPhone or the next Google Glass.
Well, there is that. Suffice to say, we're not building a version of Blink for Apple's headset at this stage.
Yeah, that's another thing I've been hearing, and I think you mentioned it yourself. The Vision Pro doesn't seem to be very gamer friendly, which is kind of an ethos of Apple, no matter what they say.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a gaming platform anytime soon.
Yeah. That being said, have you been looking at other emergent technologies in your quest to connect with autistic people? Like,
we have.
Like AR comes to mind.
Well, yeah, AR is interesting. Is an interesting one. I had good fortune to be invited down to Meta's headquarters in London a few weeks ago, and it was quite an interesting process. But AR was the centre of discussion on that, and I think it. For our audience, for my audience, or for our audience, for autistic people, as I said earlier, the immersiveness of VR is what makes it work. And obviously, when you go to AR, you're losing a lot of that immersiveness. So it's possibly not quite as relevant. But I could see us as building some sort of AR, perhaps a mixed reality sort of challenge going forward. I could certainly see a place for that, but I don't. For the autistic audience, I think VR is probably where we would be focusing at the moment. But other technologies that are coming to VR are interesting, like hand tracking. There's so many technologies that have come out since we started developing this game, so they're not in the game, but they will be in the next game, I've no doubt. Things like hand tracking, face tracking, and eye tracking are all very relevant, particularly eye tracking, because trying to encourage eye contact is a big deal with autistic people. So eye track, there might be a use for eye tracking that we can come up with that would make that work. Certainly, face tracking is important, and if we can make, again, reading expression and stuff like that is quite interesting. So responding with an expression and driving the game forward with the right expression might be something we could think about. And hand tracking, well, we are already looking into hand tracking anyway. So, but again, the problem with hand tracking is quite a lot in Blink is down to haptic responses, and the minute you go to hand tracking, you lose that, or at the moment you lose that. But if, again, there's research being done into ways of making hand tracking work and to generate some sort of haptic response. So yeah, no, it's again, my background, as I say, was in advertising, which by the time I finished there it's a mature and cynical old industry full of cynical old men. It's no longer the world of madmen. Coming into the gaming industry has been an absolute breath of fresh air. So many fantastic, lovely people, generous people, and so much optimism and positivity about the whole thing. It's a fantastic place to be working.
Right. So we are running low on time here. So I think I'll end things by asking, do you have any ideas for your next project yet?
We do. Yeah, we do. We're already, in fact, we've got a planning session next week where we're starting to put some flesh on the bones. It's going to be called Norp's Mansion, or at least that's the working title. And it will have a lot of the elements we've just been talking about, and it's going to be complementary to this game rather than a sequel or whatever.
Okay.
So it's going to still going to feature Blink and his friends, but the challenges and the setup and the structure of it, I think, will be quite different. So yeah, we're looking forward to that already.
Right then. Right. So I'll see if my colleagues here have any further questions for you.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Nick, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today. It has been a very fascinating and illuminating conversation, if nothing else. And I am pleased that we got to talk about such a rich subject matter that I'm sure is near and dear to the hearts of not just me, but my colleagues here for various reasons. But with that said, the game is Blink and the Vacuum of Space. It's available on Steam and the MetaQuest store, and
It's not on the Quest Store, it's on App Lab.
Oh, App Lab. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's currently going for, at least the Steam price is $25.99. Though it is on sale there right now, 40% off, $14.99.
It's a bargain.
Is it on sale? Yeah, is it on sale on the App Lab?
No, it's just on Steam at the moment.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also coming soon to PlayStation VR.
That's VR 2.
So, yeah. So if you've got access to a VR headset and if you've got, an autistic family member in your life, maybe perhaps look into hooking them with this game.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway, right. So that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As always, be sure to tune in next time for our Sunday game review session. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.
Thanks very much. Bye.